What's shaking, people? Back with another reaction, back with some more punk rock, and we're back with some more Propagandhi, going way back to their debut album in 1993, How to Clean Everything. I won't go over it in detail, but, because every time I do one of these videos, I feel like, well, there's going to be some people who didn't see the previous video, so I'll try to be brief, but this album was literally life-changing. I went up to a hockey camp in Canada, heard it there, a kid had it on cassette tape. Really blew my mind. Came back here. Took me a while to get it. Took me maybe like a year and a half to find it. I went to local CD stores and whatever. They didn't have it, which is telling. I live in Southern California, but I live in Orange County, and so I was going to these record stores in the early '90s in Southern California, in Orange County, and they just didn't have the record. But yeah, eventually I was able to get it, and as I said, it was life changing. The more and more I thought about the lyrics, the more they opened my mind, made me want to read literature that was at least by their second album. Literally, they included reading lists like, hey, check out this author and this author. And even just with this first album, it was like, wow, this is crazy. And so I started listening to other bands like the Subhumans, like Bad Religion, and so on. So it set me on a musical and intellectual path that in many ways I'm still traversing. So yeah, big ups to Propagandhi for this album, even if it is sonically and even lyrically, as I'll get into, and shout out to Jimmy for some insight that it keeps giving more and more the more I think about it. But yeah, I think even lyrically it's different from where they are today. And we're going to listen to a song which, believe it or not, despite that anecdote I just gave about when I first encountered this album and how much it exploded my mind, this song is the one song on the album when I first heard it I wasn't overly keen on. Both when I heard it up in the the locker room before ice time at the hockey camp in Canada, but even when I got the album eventually, like a year and a half later, I remember just occasionally skipping by this tune. But the tune is "Who Will Help Me Bake This Bread," which is a very interesting title. I always, found it a bit like cryptic because it seemed like the lyrics, they certainly aren't about baking, and I didn't really get the metaphor. But it's interesting because, friend of the channel who likes not only Propagandhi but a number of other bands that I've been reacting to, he mentioned that in the early days of Propagandhi, they used to kind of really fucking get into it when right wing white supremacist people would come to their shows, presumably to disrupt the show or just to heckle them and whatever. And I guess Chris would really get into it with them and whatever. And so when I originally heard this song, I thought it was sort of just this general message to people of older, sort of stuffier, antiquated thought patterns and behaviors and cultural attitudes and so on, including those who are quick to attack anything that's outside of that, including with physical violence. Love it or leave it, and if you don't, I'm gonna hit you, that kind of thing. And I thought this was basically Chris or the band more generally saying that look, we're here to challenge mindsets and to think differently. And so your mind might be ossified, but mine isn't. And if that bothers you, you can smash my face, you can break my bones or whatever, but you can't kill the ideas that are stirring around in here. And I've already talked to people, I've already sung about them. So these ideas are going to other brains, whatever you do to me physically. But then again, having this sort of perspective that earlier in their career, they had this sort of antagonistic relationship with people who were essentially trolls. It was pre-internet days, but they were, or at least pre-modern internet. I think Prodigy, and there were other peer-to-peer sites that you could use. But basically, they were trolls that I guess would go to their shows because they were mad that they were sort of anti-fascist and so on. But yeah, ultimately, I hear these lyrics now, and they have a new dimension. This idea that they had this very antagonistic relationship with not fans, but some people who were going to their shows, I guess to kind of spoil it for other people and for the band themselves. And I do remember reading an interview about one of the worst experiences they ever had was in Bakersfield, California. Now that's not Orange County. Orange County, it is a conservative bubble and otherwise more liberal California, but Bakersfield is one of the most conservative places in the country, and it is in California. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that they had a really bad experience there. But it also does make me think, Jimmy was saying that because of some of these issues that they had, Eventually, Samson left the band. John K. Samson, original bassist in the band, like, it was partly like he, didn't feel safe anymore, like at some of the shows, and like I guess Chris wouldn't back down. He sort of, again, sort of jawing back and forth with these people. And so that was one of the reasons that he moved on to the Weaker Thans. And he was even saying, I think, that the Weaker Thans, it was designed to be like, look, it's a weaker band than Propagandhi. We're not here, to like, be in people's faces or whatever. But I guess it didn't work because the same kind of people like showed up at their shows, like thinking that, well, he was in Propagandhi, it must be the same thing. So anyway, it's a song that has taken on new dimensions as I thought about it in the last few months. As I mentioned, when I first heard the Sonics, wasn't keen on it, but it's funny because it's one of those things where, like, if you don't like the first 30 seconds, a minute of a song, you might skip past it or, just not listen to the rest of it. And then what ends up happening, or at least what ended up happening to me in this case, is that, like, we heard it in the locker room, and I suppose I would have heard the whole thing in the locker room, but I didn't really, like, remember until I got the album that there's a musical stretch in the latter half of the tune that I think actually is very enjoyable and kind of goes to this different level. So yeah, it was a tune that didn't hit my ears quite right at first, eventually grew on me more. Now I've come to like it and have even recently come to understand it a little more. So anyway, with all that in tow, let's get to it. This is Who Will Help Me Bake This Bread by Propagandhi from their 1993 album How to Clean Everything on Fat Records.
I speak my mind, I question this. It seems to me like no one really cares. Powerfully blunt, intellectually numb. Ignorance by choice, or just
I think it was just the guitar riff. I mean, it's better here, but in that opening part, I think the guitar riff felt too, like, it turns over too quickly.
You boy, crush your brain. You answer with fists. My questions still persist.
Boycott your brain, you answer with fists.
Rearrange my face, but you can't rearrange my mind. You can't beat the shell out of them, but you can't touch what's inside.
What's inside? You gotta do a backup vocal there, come on.
So now,
I do like that drum roll.
bake this bread. Who will be the first to speak with complacency for dead? I've done all that I can on my own. Yet stagnant minds persist to squeeze blood from the stone. But I won't wait for you.
I like this part a lot. Death will be the day I concede to you.
You boy, crush your brain. You answer with fists. My questions still persist. You can rearrange my face, but you can't rearrange my mind. You can beat the shell out of me, but you can't touch what's inside. What's inside?
It's just, I was thinking about a slight clarification there. Like, you can't crush the idea itself, right? It can still pass from one brain to another. But if you damage gray matter, you can damage the idea as it existed in that particular brain. So, yeah, there is an asterisk to his claim there. But no, I do enjoy the song. As I said, when I first heard it, it was like the one song on the album that I wasn't over the moon about. It did grow on me once I got it, the album, once I got back home and, listened to it some more times. And as I said, that part where they do that sort of vocal harmony, like right near the end of the song, that was like, oh, okay, you know what, it is better than I thought. But as I said, with this sort of new kind of perspective, through people who've commented on previous videos, I really appreciate you, Jimmy, and other people who've commented on Propagandhi videos, Ryan especially, of course. Yeah, I've come to sort of understand little details here and there about their history, about, you know, sort of the guys in the band that I didn't know, which is, and again, you know, it's happened to me in a lot of areas. I began my old channel talking about techno and acid trance, you know, things that I've known about for a very long time, and you know, I felt like I was conveying most of the information this way, but in recent times it feels like there's at least as much coming back this way, which is awesome. So yeah, thank you to you all. Let me know what you think of this song. You know, again, I think musically and lyrically it's, you know, pretty far away from what they're doing these days, and yet ideologically and morally, like ethically, I think it's very much still in a similar territory. Even if, you know, methodologically maybe Chris is a little different, a bit more like nuanced in the way he conveys his ideas and the sort of combative tone of his lyrics, or less so in recent years. But yeah, let me know what you think. Other than that, thank you for listening and watching. I'll see you next time.